Welcome back to our program. I'm talking with Jim Fisher, and he is showing us how plans are developed for roads and for other types of buildings like highways and intersections and the like. And he was telling us earlier that most of that information should go on a chart of this type, and also it's a guide for the owner in helping them develop their ideas about what they really need for this roadway. Now, Jim, what does this show us right here?
Well, there's various drawings that represent, have different purposes within a set of roadway plans. This is just basically a typical section, and this tells you an awful lot. It tells you what the pavement thickness is going to be and what it's going to consist of, rock, asphalt, various layers and how they're to be put in. It also shows you the number of lanes, the width of the median if there is one. It shows you the orientation of the sidewalks. Everything that if you are looking down a road and you take a slice of it and hold it up, that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what we call a typical section of the roadway.
Now how many pages are here? Is all this the same project?
This is all the same project.
Wow.
This project is a relatively, I mean, it's not, I won't say it's a small project, but it's smaller than many projects. This project could have a total of 50 sheets, but you have projects, the larger projects in the county. For example, Bees Ferry Road has several hundred sheets in it. That's just a larger, longer project, and so this is just what we call a right-of-way strip map. And essentially it shows the alignment of the road, the new road, and it also shows the various property ownerships, simply for the purpose of identifying where we need to obtain property to build the project.
And that's right-of-way acquisition that
Yes.
comes along, and I'm sure a lot of residents know what that means, but it's not always bad, because in many instances, and I think we should say this, a lot of times the right-of-way, quote-unquote, doesn't belong to the owner while they've planted their rose bushes on this land. It sometimes belongs to the state or the city or county.
Just depends on where that line falls.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes we go a little bit beyond the right-of-way, but we only need to do it for temporary means, and we get what we call we try to get what we call permissions.
Now, the other thing I'm interested in is when you go to public meetings, because I know that oftentimes you're required, you and the contractors and the owners are required to go to public meetings, allowing the public to have something to say about the project, giving their ideas or alternatives, if you will. And you have several examples here, and they're very colorful, unlike this piece. Is this the best way to go to the public?
Well, we try to put things, when we go to the public, we try to put things in perspective. How are the improvements, the planned improvements, oriented in relationship to existing features? For example, in the middle drawing there, you see that's the interchange at Johnny Dodds and Bowman Road that's just opened up, and that you can see, for example, where the restaurants are and where the businesses are, and how access is going to be modified or how it's going to be maintained. All of those things are important to the public and the stakeholders involved, and so that's what those things show. Now, that particular drawing, that visual, colorful graphic, is probably not extremely beneficial to the contractor to bid the project. This is more beneficial and more useful to them. So that's a good tool, and visualization becomes more and more of an important factor in getting through the stakeholder process.
Right.
I mean, making sure that we get, I mean, it has two purposes. One, it is to show them what we're planning, but it also is to prompt their input. So
and the public doesn't need to know all of these things, nor would we be able to, because we're not trained to do it. But this kind of thing, where you sort of outline the colors and you've shown me the neighborhood with the trees and the roads and the highways, that helps me understand so that I can give my input.
Well, there's some very extremely smart people out there. I mean,
Really?
and you'd be surprised at the level of detail that it gets to. But we can cover a lot more bases and avoid problems in a lot of ways by the number of people who bring things to the table. By the way, did you know? And a lot of times if it has to do with, for example, stormwater and flooding and things that aren't happening every day we're out there looking at the project, but they've happened. Those things of a historical perspective are very important for us, and sometimes the only way we can get those is from the public.
How often do you have to change or make changes in a set of plans like these before you satisfy the owner or the stakeholders?
Or the stakeholders, which includes the permitting agencies. It seems that things get tweaked until the very
Till it gets done.
Yes.
Is that right?
And it just depends on the complexity.
Does the contractor who's actually going to build that, do they step in on the discussion too?
Not generally, not in a traditional delivery. Not if we're charged with developing 100% design plans and getting it bid. Typically, there's not a lot of input from the contractors. Now, for projects, many projects, for example, Charleston County, I think, has a lot of pre-bids, and where they'll invite the contractors in to ask questions and to put on a presentation about intent, just to try to fill in another one of those gaps.
Now this can be a guesstimate if you want it to be, but I'm wondering, because a lot of times folks will say to us in public relations, what's taking them so long? How long does it take you to come from the owner who has a set of ideas or who has some ideas in their mind, or the stakeholders that have ideas in their minds, to something like this, to the public, and then back to the final building or construction?
Well, again, it depends on several things. If you have a lot of utilities that are in the way of the construction, then that lengthens the project. If you have a lot of right-of-way acquisition, that lengthens the duration. And it can take, it really depends on the complexity of the project.
But it could take a year or two.
It could. And a project the size of, for example,
Yeah.
Johnny Dodds there's been studies and concepts and things have been redone, and so it can take a lot longer than a year.
Well, I'll tell you, after learning all of these things, it's amazing to me that projects meaning like the bonded projects with the county, that they can get up and get going so quickly. And it's because men and women like you are there making sure that all the details in line.
And we have a lot of help with that as well.
I
So,
bet you do. It's been very interesting. Thank you.
It is. Thank
Enjoyed
you.
talking about it.
I enjoyed it as well.
I hope the public understands a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes, so that their roads and highways that are being built with their tax dollars are being done in a very, very responsible way. And we wanted you to know that. So therefore, we brought you straight to the designer and then to the contractor. And we'll do some of that later on. So join us again for Transportation Sales Tax Program, RoadWise, as many of you know it, and we'll bring you additional information about what's going on around you in this world of building our infrastructure. Until next time, I'm Cheryl Harleston.
For more information about RoadWise projects, visit us at ccroadwise.org and follow us on Twitter and Facebook.